Welcome to Murali End, live from the end of play at the first test between Sri Lanka and England at Old Trafford. It's been a day of mixed emotions for me and for Nick. It started optimistically. It was sunny, not a cloud in the sky before the toss. Sri Lanka won the toss, wanted to bat. We're going to tell you what we think about that. But before we do that, remember to subscribe, hit the follow button, tell your friends, tell your family. Also join our WhatsApp channel. We're posting content through that all day live from here. So join that. And before we forget to mention it as well, so it's quite a bit of housekeeping. We are going to be meeting, we're doing a fans meet up at the Three Falcons Pub after every day of the Lord's Test. So not this one, but Three Falcons, it's a few minutes walk away from Lord's. We'll be there, not quite minutes afterwards, but we'll be there soon afterwards to have beers, to have food. They do great butter chicken, great biryani. We tasted some of it last week.
Curry slaps.
It's amazing. And we've got some special guests coming. It's all free entry. You don't even have to be going to the test. You can just come and watch the cricket that day there, and we'll come down. I don't know what time it would be, roughly about 7:30?
Yeah, 7:30.
7:30, yeah. But anyway, let's get into the match today. Nick, choosing to bat. I thought going into today, there was no way that they wouldn't try and put England into bat first. But they went the other way. Shows you how little I know or can predict Sri Lankan cricket. Was that, in hindsight, was that the right decision?
I think it's a really difficult one, Marky, right? Because the forecast was for cloudy conditions. It was supposed to be grey all day, and we wake up this morning to perfect blue skies. At the toss, I thought that it was a win the toss bat first sort of day based on the way it was looking and the way that the pitch looked. Ollie Pope said he would have bowled first, but I think it was sod's law for Dhananjaya de Silva that the conditions between toss and start of play changed considerably, right? It got a lot cloudier by 11 o'clock, and both Chris Woakes and Gus Atkinson were able to really move the ball around during that first half hour, 45 minutes, and it looked really tough conditions for batting. So I think it was one of those that at the toss, it looked the brave decision, the right decision. I think I was fully backing it, but it turned out to prove a little bit problematic right through that first hour.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think of the way, I'm going to chuck kind of three first wickets in together. Dimuth, Dishka and Angelo got out. I don't want to say quite cheap, because I think it was all just being not quite ready to play in England yet. And I mean, at that point, I'm just like heartbroken. This is what, 6 for 3, was it?
6 for 3, 3 wickets in the space of 10 balls without a run. And I think we can be a bit critical of all three of those dismissals, really. I think part of it was a response to the fact that conditions were tough for batting in that first 45 minutes. And Woakes and Atkinson tied Dimuth and Nishan down, and they struggled to score through those first 8 overs, right? And it looked like they were trying to manufacture scoring opportunities that just weren't there. Dimuth, who you want to dig in and you want him to bat long and you want him to build a platform, he tried to pull a ball which just wasn't short enough to pull, and he gets a top edge on it. Maybe that was also the first sign of a bit of variable bounce, which we saw a lot more as through the day, especially in that first session. Nishan, sort of playing a loose, expansive drive, an outswinger from Chris Woakes. I don't think he's got any business playing that shot at that stage of the day. But then again, if it comes out the middle of the bat and it goes for 4, no one says anything. And Angelo's shouldering arms to a nip backer, it doesn't look great in hindsight. I think it was a decent ball from Woakes that moved a bit. But look, 6 for 3, Sri Lanka are facing a huge amount of pressure, right? And having won the toss, elected to bat first, you can't get yourself into that position. And they had a mountain to climb from there. And I think to end up on 2-3-6 after that, complete boon, would have bitten anyone's hand off for that score at that stage, right?
Yeah, so going into lunch, we're not going to go ball by ball or wicket by wicket. Don't worry about that. This is only a kind of short post debrief after day one. Going into lunch, we're kind of thinking SL need a miracle here to kind of come back from this. But it turns out there was some heartbeat, and it kind of got stronger through the afternoon, right?
Yeah, and I think they deserved it because, like, I thought that Kusal Mendes batted really well, and I thought that then that Dhananjaya and Chandimal dug in really nicely and looked like they were going to carry Sri Lanka through to lunch at 4 wickets down.
Yeah.
But Chandy was really unlucky, got one offshore Bashir, which seemed to literally roll along the floor, a pretty unplayable delivery. But then, yeah, Dhananjaya, while wickets were tumbling around him, while there was chaos at the other end, he batted absolutely superbly, right? Kept the scoreboard ticking over, managed to play some aggressive shots when he looked comfortable against Mark Wood, when England bowled short to him. He hooked and pulled confidently without ever looking like he wasn't in control of those shots. And yeah, it was just I thought it was a really well-paced, really good counter-attacking captain's innings, right?
I thought it was a real good captain's innings. I realised that actually, as a captain, he's been pretty consistent. I mean, there's not been a huge amount of Test matches he's played, and even as while he's been captain, but even kind of before that, he's a decent Test player, isn't he?
He really is, up to averaging 40. I mean, he's always been a wonderful player to watch, right? But I think he was averaging mid-30s for a while. And I think, if I'm not wrong, he got a first bowler against Afghanistan in his first innings as captain. But since then, scored lots of runs in Bangladesh. And I like him. I've always loved watching him bat. He looks...
Can I just say one thing about his captaincy? When wickets were falling, I thought it was a bit strange that he doesn't go over to the guy who's lost the wicket, and he'll just kind of stand there, and he looks a little bit he's got a bit of slight, I don't say angry man, because Sri Lanka doesn't have angry men, but he doesn't take it as well as, so I suppose maybe, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you might be thinking that's how he should take it, where he's not going to be the kind of captain to put your arm around your shoulder when things go wrong for you, is he?
No, but I think he's quite calm and level-headed. I mean, he's definitely not an Arjuna type captain who's going to be quick to ire, but also very quick to put an arm around your shoulder. I think he's a more level-headed, quieter kind of guy. But he's got a bit of swagger, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And I think that, a team like Sri Lanka, whose fortunes tend to fluctuate, one moment it's amazing, the next moment it's all out disaster. I think having a kind of equanimous, kind of level-headed guy like Dhananjaya at the helm is not the worst thing for this team.
I was amazed by his press conference, how few words he managed to say.
It was very laconic, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But it was, at the same time, he exuded kind of calm and confidence.
Yeah.
And I mean, we were both commented that yesterday, the Sri Lanka side looked in amazing spirits. They were laughing and joking. They played football on the outfield for about an hour, booting the ball at each other. Kusal Mendes, I think, at one stage stole the Hiro Kumara's cap and was running around. So, I mean, they weren't daunted by turning up here and playing a test in England for the first time in 8 years. They looked like they were relishing the opportunity and really having a good time.
Yeah, they seem to just love it.
Yeah, and it's great. It's hard to see this group up close and not want them to do really well, right?
We will talk about Milan's innings in a moment, but before that, I've just got to, when you talk about them having fun, when they were doing fielding practice before going out to bowl, it was hilarious watching Angelo Matthews do kind of roly-poly type things on the side. That was probably the highlight of my day.
That was a nice little moment, wasn't it?
Yeah. For most people, though, the highlight of their day, for most Sri Lanka fans, will be Milan Ratnake's debut, starting off, getting his cap by Kumar Sangakkara in the morning, which was quite an emotional moment for everyone who saw it. And then he comes into bat. You're like thinking, well, they put him in at 9. Should he be batting at 10 or 11? Vishwanasita, kind of wily guys who will just kind of hang about if we need to. Milan's innings is incredible because he starts off having just kind of making sure he's staying safe and not getting out, and just kind of so that Dhanajaya can try and acquire some runs on the other side. But then he just grows through the innings, and then there's this incredible thing happens where every time England bring on a new bowler. And I do think, England don't have a huge, I think only 5 of their players bowl, right? So there's not a huge amount of bowling changes happening. But he seems to take his time, watch them, he'll face 8, 9, 10 balls before he even tries anything fancy. And you're like, this is such a perfect example of how somebody who's got limited batting ability should look to build an innings in Test cricket, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what a day it's been for Milan Ratnayake. He's justified his inclusion before he's bowled a ball in bags. I mean, it's his top score in first-class cricket. It's the highest score by a number 9 on debut in tests. And as you say, Marky, he started off really circumspect, hanging around with Dhananjaya. And then once Dhananjaya went, he really took centre stage and started to expand. He looked comfortable against all the bowlers, but it was that period in particular where England had to bowl 2 spinners because of the bad light. And he really started to dominate. He went to his 50 with a straight 6 off Bashir. And in true sort of Bazball style, Pope kept mid on and mid off up, trying to get him caught. And Milan just kept mowing it over them. There were some lovely shots, not just straight down the ground, but through the covers and through mid-wicket as well. He looked incredibly comfortable for a guy on debut who isn't necessarily particularly heralded for his batting. I think he looks to have a better technique than Prabhat, who is obviously someone who can score runs, but in a slightly more streaky fashion. And I'd be shocked if we don't see him batting a position higher at number 8 in the second innings.
Yeah, absolutely. He's our form batter. He's got to open it with him.
And actually, I should say as well, he turned down quite a lot of singles, didn't he? Once he was joined by Vishwa to keep or farm as much the strike as he could. And so that 72 could have been quite easily probably 15, 16 more. We could have been looking at a score in the high 80s. I felt, I didn't want to say it when we were watching on, but I thought that he might go all the way to 3 figures. And it was a shame that he got out, just mistiming one, and it almost cleared. I think it was Wokes at mid-on, but it was just, but great innings. He definitely, changed, I think, the way that Sri Lanka will look back at this day, changed the narrative. And 2-3-6 on a pitch which is up and down, the forecast isn't great. I think it gives them something to bowl at.
Yeah, the other big talking point is why did Sri Lanka decide to have a little bowl at the end? They what 3-4 overs was it?
Yeah, 4 overs.
4 overs off spin. So Dhanajaya got a couple, and Pramath got a couple. There's a lot of conversation online about this. This wasn't something that was brought up in the press conference, mainly because Milan was in the press conference, not kind of any of the senior players or anyone in management, as it were. I think the reason they did it is because I think the most important thing is, firstly, I think Sri Lanka went into that thinking we can still win this game. It is all results are possible at this stage. And they realised that if they're going to win it, they're going to need Prabhat to take wickets. And it's not the worst thing in the world for him to have a little look at the pitch, just a couple of overs at the end of day one, just to kind of find his feet. He's not bowled much. He's never bowled in England before in a meaningful international game. He's not really bowled much abroad before or outside of Asia before. I think all this experience is going to, if they're going to win this series, if they're going to get positive results in this series, taking an opportunity like that, I don't think is the worst thing in the world. But Nick, you're going to tell me he's taking the shine off for the bowlers tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where hindsight's 20/20, and it's easy. They've batted 4 overs and they've scored 20 odd runs, and it doesn't look a great decision. I think, given the sort of variable bounce that Bashir got, they thought maybe Prabhat could do the same and pick up a wicket tonight. I was a bit surprised that Prabhat didn't bowl at the end, that Bashir bowled exclusively from the Jimmy Anderson end. Dhananjaya took that end and he came from the media box end. I think we'll see really how good or bad a decision that was tomorrow morning. I think given how dangerous England looked with the new ball and how much easier it looked batting after lunch, once the ball went soft, it's probably not the way I would have gone, but what do I know? And you'd hope that the ball is new enough still that Asitha and Vishwa can get some movement tomorrow morning under what we hope will be quite heavy cloud.
I don't know if this came to their thinking at all, but at the point where Sri Lanka got out, I think we'd only had 70 overs. You're meant to have 90 overs in a day of Test cricket. Some of the ticket prices here are like 100 quid. When we get to London, every ticket price is over 100 quid. That is a lot of money to pay for not much cricket. 90 overs isn't a full 50, a 50 over game of cricket, obviously. I wonder if it came to their thinking that we just can't stop playing cricket today. We're here to play 5 days of cricket right now. We're here to play 5 days of cricket. Let's play another 20 minutes or so. in your special with Dilip Mendes that came out, if you haven't seen it, you got to go find it. It's on YouTube. It's on all the podcast apps. Dilip talks about where you talk to Dilip and Siddha about the Lord's 84 test. They talk about coming off the light because the light was bad as soon as they possibly could. I don't know. Maybe that decision at the end today might be something that Sri Lanka rue in 3 or 4 days' time. Hopefully not. Should we leave it there, Nick?
Yeah, I think the only other thing I would say was I think they felt at that stage of the day they were carrying a bit of momentum, right?
Yeah.
And there was maybe a bit of strike while the iron was hot with Dan Lawrence, a rookie opener, in the side, but it didn't turn out that way. And I think we just got to hope for early wickets tomorrow morning, right? And I think given the way that this pitch is playing, bowling fourth is going to be an advantage, and that if they can keep England under 300, they're still right in this game.
I think I reckon actually keeping them under 400 in this game.
It's that's about better than second time out, aren't they? But I think if England don't rack up a big score, I think they'll still feel they have something to play for going into the later days of the test.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been the Murali End. Thank you for watching, listening, whatever. Please subscribe, tell all your friends, join the WhatsApp group, come meet us in the Three Falcons. We'll be back tomorrow.